Dadperfectrevenge. When my daughter told me, "Dad, you can't live alone anymore. Sign this paper and, well, take care of everything," I trusted her completely. 3 weeks later, I was sitting in Sunset Manor assisted living, watching my bank account get drained by the very person I'd raised and loved for 34 years. But Ashley made one crucial mistake. She forgot that her old man was an engineer who built his fortune by solving problems nobody else could crack. My name is Carl Bennett, and at 62, I thought I was starting the quiet chapter of my life. Dorothy, my wife of 37 years, had passed from cancer 6 months earlier, and I was still figuring out how to live without her. That's when Ashley swooped in with all her lawyer talk and concern for my well-being. "Dad, this house is too big for you now," she'd say, sitting in our kitchen with her husband Tyler, both of them in their expensive suits. The maintenance, the memories, it's not healthy. Tyler would nod along, pulling out brochures for senior communities. Like he was doing me a favor, I should have seen through it. Ashley had always been ambitious, graduating law school and landing that corporate job downtown. Tyler worked as a financial advisor, always talking about optimizing assets and strategic planning. They lived in a fancy neighborhood in Westchester and drove cars that cost more than most people's houses. But I figured they were just looking out for their old man. The pressure really started after Dorothy's funeral. Ashley would visit twice a week, always bringing up the same topic. "Dad, you had that dizzy spell last month. What if you fall down the stairs? What if there's an emergency?" She'd gotten Tyler's mother, Nicole, involved too. This real estate broker who kept talking about property values and market timing. "Carl," Nicole would say, settling into my leather recliner like she owned the place, "your house is sitting on prime real estate. In today's market, you could liquidate and live comfortably anywhere you want. Liquidate." Like my home of 25 years was just another investment to cash out. The dining room where we'd celebrated Ashley's law school graduation. The kitchen where Dorothy had taught Ashley to make her grandmother's apple pie. The workshop in the basement where I'd built Ashley's dollhouse when she was 7. All just square footage to Nicole Brooks. The final push came on a rainy Tuesday in March. Ashley arrived with a stack of papers and that serious expression she'd worn since law school. The rain was drumming against the windows of my living room as she spread documents across my coffee table like she was closing a business deal. "Dad, Tyler and I found the perfect place for you. Sunset Manor has everything. Medical staff on duty 24/7, activities coordinator, people your age. You'll love the independence." Independence. That was rich, coming from someone trying to control my living situation. She pulled out glossy brochures showing smiling elderly people playing cards and doing watercolor. Paintings. "Look at these amenities, Dad. Restaurant-style dining, transportation services, even a putting green. It's like a resort. A resort where you pay $4,800 a month to eat institutional food and wait for death," I thought. But I kept my mouth shut. "We just need you to sign this power of attorney," Ashley continued, sliding a thick legal document toward me. "It's temporary, just until we get everything transferred and you're settled. You'll handle all the financial stuff, so you don't have to worry about it." Power of attorney. I knew what that meant from my engineering contracts, but Ashley was explaining it like I was some confused old man who'd never managed a multi-million-dollar business. "It just gives me authority to pay your bills and handle the house sale while you adjust to your new life, Dad. Tyler's firm will manage your investments properly. You know how complicated modern portfolio management has become." I stared at the papers. The legal language was dense, full of, whereas clauses in party of the first part, nonsense. Dorothy would have read every line twice, made notes in the margins, and probably called our attorney for clarification. But she wasn't there to catch what I missed. Tyler leaned forward, his expression all professional sincerity. "Carl, I've reviewed your current investment strategy, and frankly, it's pretty conservative for someone your age. We can do much better with active management. Active management, code for higher fees and more risk with other people's money." "Dad," Ashley added, reaching over to squeeze my hand, "I know this feels overwhelming, but Tyler's firm has handled much larger estates than yours. This is what they do. What they do, like stealing from vulnerable widowers, was just another service they offered. Ashley was my daughter. I'd walked her down the aisle 3 years ago, helped with her student loan payments when she was struggling as a junior associate, celebrated every promotion. If I couldn't trust her, who could I? Trust? The rain kept drumming against the windows. Ashley and Tyler sat watching me, patient as vultures waiting for roadkill to stop twitching. I picked up the pen and signed the papers. That was the biggest mistake of my life. 3 weeks later, I was unpacking my belongings in a 300-square-foot room at Sunset Manor. The walls were institutional beige. The furniture looked like it had been ordered from a hospital supply catalog, and the single window faced the parking lot instead of the garden they'd shown me in the brochures. Ashley had sold my house faster than I'd thought possible. The market was perfect, Dad. We got $1.2 million, way above asking price. She handed me the facility contract like it was a gift. And look, your monthly fee is only $4,800. Your Social Security and pension will almost cover it. Almost cover it. For a man who'd built a business worth $8.5 million, I was suddenly living on a budget that barely covered my rent. The cafeteria at Sunset Manor served dinner at 5 p.m. sharp, and the menu never changed. Tuesday was always meatloaf that tasted like cardboard. Wednesday was fish that smelled like it had been frozen since the Carter administration. I sat at my assigned table with 3 other residents: Harold, who talked constantly about his glory days selling insurance; Betty, who complained about everything; and Frank, who mostly just stared at his food. "You're new," Frank observed during my first week, cutting his meatloaf into precise squares. "What'd you do before this place?" "I was an engineer. Built bridges, designed water treatment systems." Frank nodded. "I was a machinist for 40 years. Funny how we all end up in the same place, isn't it?" It was funny, but not in a way that made me laugh. The first red flag appeared 2 weeks into my stay at Sunset Manor. I tried to access my business account online to check on my investments, using the computer in the facility's common room. The screen was ancient, probably donated by some family, who'd upgraded their own setup, but it worked well enough for basic internet access. When I entered my login information, the screen flashed, "Password incorrect." I tried again, thinking I'd mistyped. Same message. On the 3rd attempt, I got locked out entirely. I called First National Bank from the phone in my room, the same bank where I'd done business for 25 years. After navigating through their automated system for 10 minutes, I finally reached a human being. "I'm sorry, Mr. Bennett, but all inquiries regarding your accounts have to go through Ashley Coleman, your power of attorney. Bank policy for protected accounts." Protected accounts. Like I was some kind of criminal who couldn't be trusted with my own money. That's when I noticed something odd about the name. "Did you say Ashley Coleman?" "Yes, sir. Ashley Coleman is listed as your primary contact and financial representative." Ashley Coleman. She had hyphenated her name on the legal documents, something she'd never done before in 3 years of marriage. Tyler had always complained about modern women keeping their maiden names, said it showed a lack of commitment. Now suddenly she was Ashley Coleman on my bank records. I called her office downtown, a glass tower on 5th Street, where her law firm occupied 3 floors. The receptionist put me through to her assistant, some kid who sounded like he was barely out of college. "Oh, Mr. Bennett, Ashley mentioned you might call. She's in depositions all week, but she asked me to tell you that she's updated all the accounts for easier management." Easier management. What kind of updates? "Well, Tyler's handling the investment portfolio now." She said, "You don't need to worry about any of that complicated financial stuff anymore." Complicated financial stuff. ID run a consulting firm with 47 employees and federal contracts worth millions. But suddenly, I was too old to understand basic banking. "Can you have her call me when she's free?" "Sure thing. She's pretty swamped with the Morrison case." But I'll give her the message. The Morrison case. I knew that name. Morrison Development had been one of my biggest clients before I retired. They'd hired my firm to design the water systems for 3 major housing developments. Now, Ashley was representing them in some legal matter, probably making more in a month than most people saw in a year. The second red flag came when I tried to visit my old house to pick up some tools from the garage. I'd forgotten my good multimeter and my father's level set, things I thought I might want if I ever got the urge to build something again. I took the bus to my old neighborhood, a 45-minute ride that gave me plenty of time to think about how much my life had changed. The house looked different already. New paint on the shutters, different flowers in Dorothy's garden. The young couple who'd bought it had 2 kids, and I could hear them playing in the backyard. When I tried my key in the front door, it didn't work. The locks had been changed, of course. I rang the doorbell instead. The woman who answered was maybe 35, with paint-stained fingers and a friendly smile. "Oh, you must be Mr. Bennett, the previous owner, right?" previous owner. That stung more than I had expected. I'm sorry to bother you, I said. I just wanted to pick up a few tools I left in the garage. Should only take a minute. Her smile faltered. I am sorry, but the sellers never mentioned anything about tools. The garage was completely empty when we moved in. Empty. Ashley and Tyler had cleaned out everything, even my father's old toolbox that I had planned to pass down to my grandson someday. Are you sure? There should have been a red toolbox on the workbench and some hand tools hanging on pegboard. No, nothing like that. The real estate agent said all personal property had been removed by the family. The family. That would be Ashley and Tyler, disposing of 40 years of accumulated memories like they were clearing out a storage unit. I drove back to Sunset Manor, feeling like something was seriously wrong, but I couldn't put my finger on it. The bus ride gave me time to think, and the pieces weren't adding up. Ashley had moved fast, maybe too fast. Professional movers don't usually clean out garages unless specifically instructed, and my tools were worth several $1,000s. Someone had made deliberate decisions about what to keep and what to dispose of. That evening, I called Tyler's office from the phone in the common room. The receptionist at Brooks Financial Services sounded young and eager to please. Carl, hey, how's the new place? Tyler sounded busy, distracted, like I was interrupting something important. In the background, I could hear phones ringing and people talking. The busy hum of money being made. It's an adjustment, I said honestly. Tyler, I tried to access my business accounts today, but the passwords have been changed. Oh, right, I should have mentioned that. I'm restructuring your portfolio for better returns, moving everything into more aggressive growth funds while you're young enough to weather the volatility. Young enough at 62, but too old to manage my own affairs. The contradiction was starting to bother me. What kind of restructuring? Well, Carl, your old strategy was way too conservative. Treasury bonds, blue-chip dividend stocks, that's Depression-era thinking. We're talking about emerging markets, tech startups, cryptocurrency exposure. The potential returns are massive. Cryptocurrency, for a 62-year-old widower who is supposed to be planning for long-term care. Tyler, I'm not comfortable with that level of risk. Carl, that's exactly what we're talking about. No offense, but you've been out of the financial game for a while. The markets have evolved. Trust me, this is what smart money does. Smart money. Like the money I'd made building a business from nothing was somehow stupid money. Can you send me the details? I'd like to review the actual investments. There was a pause. Carl, those reports are pretty technical. Lots of financial jargon that would just confuse you. The important thing is that we're beating the market by 12% this quarter. Beating the market by 12%. In a quarter, when the S&P 500 was down 3%. Either Tyler was a financial genius, or he was lying to my face. The third red flag was the big one, and it came 6 weeks into my stay at Sunset Manor. I'd been sitting in the common room, watching the evening news with Frank and Harold, when a commercial came on for a legal aid service. Some lawyer talking about elder abuse and financial fraud, encouraging people to call if they suspected family members were stealing from them. Bunch of ambulance chasers, Harold muttered, but something in the commercial stuck with me. The lawyer mentioned power of attorney abuse, where family members use legal authority to drain bank accounts. The next morning, I got a letter from Dorothy's oncologist's office. It was a bill for $347 that insurance hadn't covered from her final treatment 6 months earlier. Routine stuff. But when I called Ashley to handle it, her assistant said she was in depositions all week, so I decided to handle it myself. I called First National Bank and asked them to pay the bill from my checking account. I'm sorry, Mr. Bennett, but that account was closed 4 weeks ago. All funds were transferred to the Brooks Family Trust. Brooks Family Trust, Tyler's family name. My hands started shaking, but not from any medical condition, from pure rage. What do you mean, closed? I never authorized that. Well, sir, according to our records, Ashley Coleman authorized the transfer as your power of attorney. The trust was established for estate planning purposes. Estate planning, like I was already dead. I hung up and sat in my tiny room, staring at the institutional furniture and feeling like the world had shifted under my feet. My daughter hadn't just moved me into assisted living. She'd taken everything I owned. But here's the thing about being an engineer for 40 years. You learn to approach problems systematically. When a bridge starts showing stress fractures, you don't panic. You analyze the load distribution, identify the failure points, and design a solution. This was just another engineering problem, a human engineering problem. Step 1. Gather data. The next morning, I took the bus downtown to my old lawyer's office. Bill Henderson had handled my business contracts for 20 years, helped me incorporate the firm, negotiated the sale when I retired. His office was on the 7th floor of the Meridian building, same place it had been since I'd known him. But when I asked to see him, the receptionist looked confused. She was new, probably hired since my last visit, and she kept checking her computer screen like she couldn't find my information. Sorry, Mr. Bennett, but Mr. Henderson said you'd transferred all your legal affairs to Coleman and Associates. We don't have any active files for you anymore. Coleman and Associates. Ashley's firm. When did this happen? The receptionist clicked through several screens. According to our notes, Ms. Coleman contacted us in January to request all your files be transferred to her firm for family consolidation. January, 2 months before Dorothy died. Ashley had been planning this while her mother was still fighting cancer. I left Henderson's office and walked 6 blocks to First National Bank, where I'd done business for 25 years. The manager, Janet Murphy, had handled my business accounts since I'd started the engineering firm. She'd known Dorothy, had sent flowers when she died. "Carl, how are you adjusting to retirement?" Janet asked when I appeared at her desk, then caught herself. I was sorry to hear about the financial difficulties. Ashley explained everything when she closed the accounts. Financial difficulties. Janet, what financial difficulties? Her expression changed from friendly to cautious. She said you'd been having some cognitive issues since Dorothy's death, making poor investment decisions, forgetting to pay bills. She showed us medical documentation about early-stage dementia. The room started spinning. Janet, I don't have dementia. I've never been diagnosed with any cognitive issues. She looked uncomfortable now, glancing around like she was afraid other customers might overhear. Carl, maybe you should speak with Ashley. She has all your medical files, and the doctor's reports were very specific about your condition. My own daughter had told people I had dementia to justify stealing my life savings. The betrayal was so complete, so calculated, that I sat there in Janet's office for a full minute trying to process it. Janet, I need copies of everything Ashley showed you. The medical reports, the power of attorney documents, all of it. Carl, I can't do that. Those are confidential documents, and Ashley specifically requested that we not discuss your financial affairs with you directly due to your condition. Due to my condition. The condition that existed only in forged medical reports. I left the bank feeling like I was in some kind of nightmare, but the engineering part of my brain was already working. If Ashley could create fake medical records, she'd left a paper trail. And if there was one thing I'd learned from 40 years of government contracts, fraud always leaves evidence. That evening, I called my old business partner, Eddie Morrison, who'd retired to Florida the year before I sold the firm. Eddie, I need you to send me copies of all our partnership dissolution documents from when I retired. Carl, what's going on? Ashley's people already requested all that paperwork months ago. Nice girl, very professional. Said she was handling your estate planning. Ashley's people had been collecting evidence of my assets long before I'd signed any power of attorney. This wasn't spontaneous greed. This was premeditated theft. Eddie, how much was my buyout worth when we dissolved? The partnership? You don't remember? $4.8 million, plus the retained earnings distribution. Carl, are you feeling okay? $4.8 million. Add the house sale at $1.2 million, plus my retirement accounts worth $2.5 million, and Ashley and Tyler had stolen $8.5 million from me. The next morning, I called a private investigator named Scott Pierce, who specialized in financial crimes. I'd found his name in the Yellow Pages, and his office was downtown near the courthouse, convenient for someone who spent a lot of time testifying in criminal cases. Mr. Bennett, Scott said after it explained the situation, what you're describing is textbook elder financial abuse, but proving it requires evidence that your daughter hasn't destroyed. We met at a diner near Sunset Manor, a place called Mickey's that served coffee strong enough to wake the dead. Scott was younger than I'd expected, maybe 45, with the kind of sharp eyes that suggested he'd seen every scam in the book. What kind of evidence? I asked. Scott pulled out a legal pad and started making notes. Bank records showing the unauthorized transfers, medical records proving you don't have dementia, original copies of any documents you signed, phone records showing coordination between Ashley and Tyler. Most importantly, we need them to incriminate themselves. How do we do that? Scott smiled grimly. People who commit fraud always get overconfident, Mr. Bennett. They start talking freely when they think they've won. Would you be willing to wear a recording device? 3 days later, I was sitting in Ashley's downtown office with a digital recorder taped to my chest, pretending to be the confused old man she thought I was. Her office was on the 23rd floor of the Meridian Tower, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city ID helped build with my engineering projects. Dad, so glad you called, Ashley said, gesturing to the leather chairs across from her massive desk. Tyler and I have been worried about you. How are you? Adjusting to Sunset Manor? It's been challenging, I said honestly. I'm not used to having such limited space, or such a limited budget. Ashley and Tyler exchanged a look. They were both dressed like they were heading to court, all expensive suits and professional authority. Well, Dad, we've been meaning to update you on your financial situation. The market's been volatile, but we've managed to preserve most of your capital. How much is most? Tyler opened his briefcase with the confidence of someone who'd rehearsed this presentation. Carl, between Dorothy's medical expenses, the house preparation costs, and setting up your care arrangement, you're looking at about $180,000 in liquid assets. $180,000 out of $8.5 million. Where did the rest go? Dad, remember the conversations we had about this? Ashley used that patient tone she'd perfected in law school. The medical bills for Dorothy's treatment, the capital gains taxes on liquidating your business assets, the legal fees for setting up, the trust. We showed you all the paperwork. They had answers for everything, professional, plausible answers that would satisfy any casual inquiry. But I was recording every word. I appreciate everything you've done, I said carefully. But I'm worried I might be a burden on you two. Maybe I should get my own lawyer to review the trust documents. Ashley's expression shifted slightly. Dad, that's really not necessary. I am a lawyer, remember? And bringing in outside counsel would just create expensive complications for everyone. But what if something happens to you? Shouldn't I understand my own financial situation? Dad, Ashley said with fake concern, you're getting confused again. The whole point of the trust is that you don't have to worry about financial details anymore. That's why Dr. Williams recommended this arrangement. Dr. Williams, the imaginary specialist from my forged medical records. I'd like to meet with Dr. Williams again. I don't remember our last conversation. Dad, that's exactly what we're talking about. The short-term memory loss is getting worse. Dr. Williams explained that patients in your condition often don't remember their appointments. Perfect. Any denial I made just proved their story about my alleged dementia. But I had one advantage they didn't know about. Everything they just said was being recorded by FBI quality equipment. After I left Ashley's office, I met with Scott Pierce and a new ally, FBI, Agent Foster, who specialized in financial crimes against seniors. Mr. Bennett, Agent Foster said after reviewing my recordings, you've documented a federal case of elder financial abuse. We have forged medical records, fraudulent power of attorney, and conspiracy to commit wire fraud. What happens next? We execute search warrants on their homes, offices, and bank accounts. We interview this Dr. Williams they keep mentioning, and we arrest them for federal crimes. Agent Foster smiled grimly. Based on your evidence, they'll be in custody within 48 hours. Wednesday morning at 6:47 a.m., I was eating breakfast in Sunset Manor's cafeteria when my phone rang. Ashley's name appeared on the screen. Dad, something terrible has happened. There's been some kind of misunderstanding with the FBI. What kind of misunderstanding? They've frozen all our accounts. They're saying we committed fraud, but Dad, we were protecting your money. You have to call them and explain about your condition. My condition. The one that existed only in their forged documents. Ashley, I think I should tell you something. I don't actually have any memory problems. I never saw Dr. Williams because he doesn't exist. And I recorded our conversations where you admitted to liquidating my assets. The silence lasted so long, I thought the call had dropped. Dad, you can't do this to your own family. You already did it to me. 6 hours later, Ashley Coleman and Tyler Brooks were arrested at their respective offices and charged with elder financial abuse, wire fraud, and Conspiracy to commit identity theft. Today, I'm sitting in the kitchen of my new house, smaller than the old one, but bought with my recovered $8.2 million. I used $2 million to establish the Bennett Foundation for Elder Financial Protection. Ashley wrote me 4 letters from federal prison. I returned them all unopened. At 62, I've got plenty of years left to make sure other families don't have to learn these lessons the hard way. Remember this: age doesn't make you stupid, grief doesn't make you incompetent, and when your own family decides you're disposable, that doesn't make you helpless. It makes you motivated to prove them dead wrong. The biggest mistake predators make is assuming their victims are too weak or too trusting to fight back. Sometimes that trust is exactly what gives you the patience to build an airtight case against them.